then. So it's 7:35, 7:36 actually. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Rajshri Owen and I'm the Chief Officer for Community Pharmacy Leicestershire and Rutland. Welcome this evening and thank you for taking the time to join us. Today, my colleague Gareth, part of our services team, is going to be looking at the CPCF contract changes and what that means for you as contractors going forward as well. So there have been lots of changes since April, since the CPCF announcement by Community Pharmacy England. So we're going to walk you through what that means as well. So Gareth's got the agenda slide here, which we'll present. In the meantime, before I hand over to Gareth, please do feel free to use the chat function this evening. I'll be monitoring the chat and we will get the opportunity, or you'll get the opportunity to have your questions answered at the end, and we'll try and answer them throughout today, this evening as well. So I will monitor the chat. I'm hoping you can all hear and see the screens as well. So now I'm going to hand over to Gareth. Gareth, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajshri. Good evening, pharmacist colleagues. Welcome to our webinar. The objective this evening being to reflect on the recently negotiated pharmacy contract variations, especially those impacting the three main advanced pharmacy services and the implications of those variations for your businesses. The changes include a mix of service specification variations and commercial or fee-related changes. So there will be lots of points arising to be thinking about and suggested operational changes which you might wish to implement.
Dad, can you put YouTube on?
We will focus on blood pressure checks, pharmacy first and contraception services, and give you a little update on the performance of Leicestershire contractors during 2024. I'm also delighted Paul Gilbert from LLR Integrated Care Board is with us this evening. Paul will jump in as we discuss each of these services with comments and information on the support that the ICB may be able to offer. We will also squeeze in a quick look at the changes to NMS services and the PQS. As we go through, please pop your questions in the chat, and Rajshri, who is technical controller this evening, will flag them to me or perhaps respond directly in the chat. Later on, Rajshri will share a few slides covering the broader funding settlements for the year. Then rounding off our evening, we are pleased to have Ms. Suki Tagger from NHS England, who will advise on pharmacy technician apprenticeship funding. So something to look forward to there. But first, a bit of background to give some context to this business of bundling of services. I don't know if you've heard that expression mentioned. You'll hear it a few times this evening. In 2023, the Primary Care Access Recovery Plan was launched, and its aim was to take pressure off the limited GP appointment slots which are available, which was and still is a problem that's causing mayhem at 8 o'clock in most mornings in most surgeries. Patients are trying to get through to make GP appointments only to find them all booked up, and this was becoming politically very sensitive. So these three services together constituted community pharmacy's contribution to the PCARP strategy. I don't know if that was ever made clear. So those are bundled together, the pharmacy contribution to the PCARP strategy. All three were introduced separately, as you know, but the intent was they'd be bundled so that pharmacies in England provide a consistent menu of services. And we are now seeing how these new bundling and banding rules are being used to encourage contractor compliance and consistency, with links to the available £1,000 monthly performance incentive being used as a rather clever management lever. More about this as we go on. So, looking at our blood pressure checks first, I can report that we are performing rather marvellously here in the East Midlands, delivering the highest volume of blood pressure checks compared with the other four LPC areas, and we are third place in the wider Midlands region, which has a total of 11 LPC areas, which of course correspond with the NHS ICB areas. But our service quality is not good. The telltale signs being the volume of ABPM services being provided. Here we can see the most recently reported performances over the last 4 months. Leicestershire is underlined in yellow, whilst the top 2 performers are underlined in lime green. In Leicestershire, ABPM volumes accounted for 6.3% of our blood pressure check services, whilst the better performers are scoring 10% in that respect, which is a very significant 40% more than what we are achieving in Leicestershire. So we really must do better when encouraging patients to have an ABPM check when we have an elevated clinic check arising. Some pharmacy businesses are sharing an instrument and missing the opportunity to offer an ABPM service at this key point when the patient is most likely to be agreeable to have one. I would flag our LPC website to pharmacist colleagues and the supporting resources that are there to assist with hypertension case finding. The ABPM resources are highlighted. They should have been highlighted. And I would encourage you all to review them. There they are. The ambulatory blood pressure monitors, there's a page there that describes some of the ones that are available. There is a video optimizing the technician's role, which includes operation of the ABPM instrument and how your technician team can help. So you've got that to look forward to if you can consider upping the number of ABPMs that you'll be providing. In fact, before we finish this presentation, you'll see why it's becoming an important and crucial issue. Moving on to the contractual changes and the implications of bundling for blood pressure services. All pharmacies must be registered to provide blood pressure checks from June. And from October, you must have delivered at least one ABPM check in the overall bundle of services that you have provided to secure the £1,000 performance payment. So, for example, if you have provided 31 qualifying Pharmacy First clinical services, you must also have provided at least one ABPM check. Otherwise, you will not get your £1,000 performance payment. Let that sink in. Whilst this is not great news, we might also note that the ABPM service fee has been significantly uplifted to nearly £51, which is the highest service fee amongst the PCARP group of services. Conversely, there has been a cut in the service fee payable for clinic checks, down by a third to just £10. Unfortunately, this is related to skill mix and the role of technicians in clinical service provision. So pharmacy businesses need to be careful what they wish for. This is such a disincentive for skill mixing. It would be good to have your opinions in the chat for how we can increase ABPM service volumes. I would suggest every pharmacy needs to have its own ABPM instrument. The loss of a £1,000 monthly payment would be a painful lesson if an opportunity to provide a service was missed because the machine was at a branch pharmacy. I would just invite Paul to jump in just now and share any ICB perspectives on what we have shared so far. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gareth, and thanks for having me today. LPC College just asked me to come on a webinar just to give some perspectives from other stakeholders outside of community pharmacy around the blood pressure checking service and other services as well. So I should be dipping in and out throughout the evening. I think it's fair to say, just with the blood pressure service, it doesn't always land very well with GP practices in particular. There's often a perception that it duplicates work that they do, or sometimes it's poorly delivered. I often get reports of where patients are perhaps not appropriate for the service. They're perhaps already having blood pressure checks managed, or they're too young. There's often a perception that we're very quick to escalate patients who perhaps have a one-off high reading and falsely identify blood pressure, patients with high blood pressure. So it doesn't always land particularly well with GP practice. That's certainly not the case all over LLR. We've got some really good pockets of really strong practice where it has been embedded in local pathways, and that's the important part. It's without a doubt, from a ICB perspective and a public health perspective, actually it really has got its place. So you around the case finding and accessibility for those patients who probably just need a blood pressure check for monitoring purposes. For instance, might be mirabegron, or perhaps just be managed by monotherapy for high blood pressure. Certainly got a place, but it's about how we deliver it. And I'll come through to this theme throughout the evening, but it's all about our local engagement, delivering a quality service. In the end, lots of practices will actually be buying you as individual practitioners rather than the service in your pharmacy. So I really encourage you to engage really strongly, but make sure you're following the service spec really clearly. And some of the points that Gareth about ABPM is so important, both for patient care, clinical, and for pharmacy contractors from a remuneration point of view. We've seen the increase there in the fee, to really start landing those ABPMs. So make sure your team can sell the importance of an ABPM. That high blood pressure check in clinics done. We did about 7,500 checks last month in LR, and that's just provisional data. Staggering amount, particularly for non-vaccination season. It was highest non-vaccination number ever, right? But follow through, get that 50 quid. Make sure your team can sell. Make sure you can get that machine, get it fitted there and then if you can. Again, come wear it next day. No, they only need to wear it for 14 checks, but really important. But and by doing that, we can demonstrate the value in the service, and that sort of just gives the answer to those stakeholders who perhaps do see it as not got its place. Because I recognise it's got its place. Lots of colleagues in sort of commissioning recognise it's got its place, but sometimes the people on the ground, GP practices, in particular PCNs, do struggle sometimes to see the value, and we certainly do get some pushback. But it's definitely got its place. So particularly land those ABPMs. Thanks, Gareth.
Wonderful. Thanks, Paul. Now moving on to contraception services. Again, LLR is performing very credibly. We ranked second out of the 5 LPC areas in our East Midlands region and fourth out of the 11 LPC areas in the wider Midlands. A proxy for service quality is the ratio of initiation to ongoing supply services. And it is pleasing to see that we are matching the Staffordshire LPC area, which has considerably more experience since that's where contraception services were piloted. That said, there remains 25 LLR contractors who have yet to register, and of the 198 which have registered, only 67% are routinely claiming for services rendered. It might be a year since some of them did their training, so maybe feeling the need for a little refresher perhaps. This bar chart shows our LLR monthly performances. We are currently providing over 1,000 contraception services per month. As we can see, those who have engaged have shared in a considerable £200,000 fee income, which has been paid out since the service began. The recent contract negotiations have introduced several contraception service changes. There are 2 bundling issues. The first being contractors must be registered as service providers from next month. We are mindful that there are 25 or so contractors out there who still need to register. Otherwise, they risk not being paid their pharmacy first performance incentives, even if they hit their 30+ qualifying services. So if that includes you, please do get on board. This bundling requirement applies from June. Note as a sweetener for any late registrants, they will still qualify for the £400 sign-up fee. Look at the drug tariff for a bit more detail on that. Moving on, we are pleased to see the revised £25 service fee, which recognises the extra clinical time requirements associated with contraception service provision. This is nearly a 40% increase. We also understand that trained technicians will be permitted to provide the service. The detail on that still to be released. We are also pleased to learn that a national NHS EHC service will be launched, hopefully in October. The timing will be subject to the necessary IT support being in place. The service specification has yet to be published, so platforms like Farm Outcomes cannot develop its module until the spec is out. We have, however, been given some information. Seemingly, it will be a more open access service, both for contractors and for patients, compared with our current local authority EHC model. For example, we believe patients over the age of 25 will be allowed to access the EHC service free on the NHS. And the NHS EHC service fee will be a more realistic £20 compared with the local authority EHC payment, which has been frozen at £12.50 for the last 16 years. Helpfully, EHC training for this NHS EHC service has been linked with the PQS, the Pharmacy Quality Scheme, which we'll come to. So, in effect, contractors will be paid for their study time through the PQS. Finally, back to bundling. There will be a requirement for a minimum number of contraception service interventions from next March. We don't yet know the figure, or if NHS EHC figures will count towards it. So we await further announcements. What is clear is the direction of travel. We know what is expected in October, so we must prepare to provide the whole menu of contraception services, or risk falling foul of the bundling rules and forfeiting some £1,000 payments. This is a snip of the contraception page on your LPC website. If you can see the resources that, so you can see the resources that are at your fingertips. I would strongly recommend that you tag the website so that it appears on your Google Favorites bar. Let's have a look. At the bottom is a safeguarding support page with every possible contact that you hopefully will never need. Above that is the LLR contraception formulary, just a click away. I would advise pharmacists who would like a refresher or who still need to do the training to have a look at the Getting Ready resources, which includes Farm Outcomes screenshots. I would advise looking at this before tackling your CPPE study. It's like seeing the exam questions before doing your revision, so you can identify and be able to focus on what is required and so feel more confident with the issues arising in service provision. Over again to Paul for his thoughts on this service. Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Gareth. Thanks, Gareth. So, contraception service, it's really well perceived locally. So, lots of our GP practice colleagues really value the additional capacity that it allows locally. We've got really good examples of people building links, referral links, both from practices to pharmacies for delivery or contraception, and also for referrals back from pharmacy to practices around long-acting reversible contraception. So, but it's really well perceived. The quantity we vastly exceeded. We did twice what we thought we'd do last year. We're above plan again already this year. So it's really really going. That really lands well, both with GP practice colleagues and with other stakeholders, ICB and commissioners and our public health team. So really appreciate the availability that it's now offering, choice that it offers our women. We're really keen to see all LR pharmacies to provide this, and that potentially really allow us to bang the drum that it's available, 100% of the time from 100% of pharmacies. That would be the absolute ambition. So really challenge you to work with your pharmacy teams and other pharmacists to get everyone up to speed. Everyone can offer it, and certainly to make sure everyone's aware of the service. So when patients come and approach the pharmacy, when is it available? When can they see someone? So from ICB perspective, really keen to support this financial year. So really keen to know what sort of training people would like additionally around contraception service. So if you can perhaps put some thoughts in the chat, we really value them, whether it's clinical training, whether it's safeguarding training, the format, whether you like face-to-face, remote. So really keen to try and put something on, particularly to time with that launch of the additional EHC. It's going to be so valuable. It's going to make a real difference to women across Leicestershire to have that available from, be great. 100% of pharmacies, 100% of the time, absolutely fantastic. That's what we should be aiming for. So we'd like to, we're going to really start with spent a lot of time promoting pharmacy first to practices, but we're going to slightly change the narrative around community pharmacy to the conception service over the summer and into the autumn to really bang the drum, make the offer availability really clear. So we do, whenever we get updated safeguarding information, we do post it out. Tends to come via email to East Midlands Primary Care team, directly into your shared mailboxes. So do look out for those, and also it will be on the LPC. Kindly do host the resources on the website, as Gareth said. So do get that safeguarding part right. If there are any concerns around delivery, it's normally some of our safeguarding professionals who perhaps aren't aware of the training that people have done and perhaps feel that there might be some reticence in reporting. If you've got any safeguarding concerns, do look at the contacts on the LPC website. They're absolutely happy. They will happily engage you on a one-to-one basis to pick the phone up if you've got any concerns. So don't feel you can't speak to them. They're there. They know pharmacy plays an important role. They know that part of their role is to support yourselves as well. So do keep going. Keep explaining to women what the offer is, and to be able to drive that forward. So and hopefully we'll have a really successful year around conception. We're aiming for 2,000 a month by the end of the year. So we're about 1,200 at the moment. So lots more, but there's loads of capacity, loads of opportunities out there. Gareth, back to you.
Wonderful, Paul. Thank you. Moving on to the Pharmacy First service itself. Again, a good performance report. In Leicestershire, we are leading the way in the East Midlands again, and fourth overall in the Midlands. Fee income is running at around £150,000 per month into LLR, with Leicestershire contractors having delivered a stonking great £1.8 million worth of Pharmacy First services in the last year. But surgery referrals are poor. Pharmacists must thus do a little bit more to build up primary care relationships if we're to improve those poor referral rates we are seeing from the majority of GP practices. We can see from this chart that nearly 100,000 patient interventions have been made in the year to February. It will be well over that number by now, so the service is freeing up huge numbers of GP appointments. And there have been significant contractual changes impacting Pharmacy First. A pleasing 13% increase in the service fee to £17 and the introduction of a helpful intermediate band governing monthly incentive payments. £500 is now claimable if 20 plus qualifying Pharmacy Firsts have been provided, whilst the £1,000 incentive kicks in at 30 units. We know that the first 19 qualifying interventions attract a respectable £17 service fee, but notice that crossing the 20 band threshold effectively increases the apportioned fee value to £42. That's a 150% increase. Now that's a really respectable fee. Further, crossing the 30 unit threshold increases the apportioned fee value to £50 per qualifying intervention. I make these points, it's not double accounting, I make these points because I feel it is a more motivating perspective and thus more likely to encourage a more holistic review of your pharmacy operations and human resources planning. Importantly, we need to build better relationships with practices that are conducive to making more patient referrals. As well as friendly interpersonal relationships, pharmacists need to have a few persuasive sentences on the tip of their tongues when they meet key practice staff. It's especially important to be able to make the case for electronic referrals over verbal signposting. There is a helpful training video on our website for reception managers, which sets out a strong case for electronic referrals over signposting. So please do watch it. Absorb the arguments and be ready to use them when the opportunity arises. Before handing back to Paul, I would take you back again to the LPC website, this snip illustrating the support for surgeries page. There's support for pharmacies and all the rest of it, but we've got this support for surgeries page on our LPC website. Aim to share, cut and paste the URL link into an email and share it with practice managers and with reception managers. We have recommended the training video. You can see about the middle of the slide. We have recommended that training video is used as part of the induction training for new surgery reception staff. We all need to be on the same page. So do watch that video from a business development perspective. You're not going to learn about service provision from a pharmacy perspective, but please watch it from a business development perspective and let us all echo the same consistent message to practices. Back again to Paul.
Thank you, Gareth. So Pharmacy First is without doubt really valued with the ICB from commissioning perspective and by the vast majority of our practices. I very rarely hear practices don't want the patients eligible pharmacy first being seen by pharmacy. The reasons they don't refer often around technical or headspace as opposed to sort of ideological. So I think everyone really recognises the value, and this year we're really keen to try and drive that growth, particularly around GP referrals. So you have a real key place in providing that same day access that, you know, most of us here are patients within LLR as well. We all become ill at times, or our families come ill, and we want that same day access, don't we? And like the people on this call, the rest of the population in LLR does as well. So we're really keen to drive that growth, and we have been doing a huge amount of work pushing referrals. Myself and my colleague Dane have been every single manager, practice manager, PCA manager, partner knows when they see me and Dane come on, we're going to talk about Pharmacy First and Pharmacy First referrals in particular. But we do feel we've turned the tide a little bit. So GP practice referrals went up minorly last month, when due to seasonality would probably expect a little bit of a dip. So we do feel we are starting to turn a corner. We are very hopeful for a new System 1 referral module to come on board in the next couple of weeks. They've said the end of May. This time March, they said the end of March, but I'm still hopeful for the end of May. We hope that will be a massive game changer as well. So you can see there on the table some of the sort of ambitions for growth really we've got there. So strong growth across the table, apart from that third line, it's a technical thing really. But you know, really targeting 20-30% growth on Pharmacy First numbers, recognizing that you need to have those referrals from other settings. We've got the urgent treatment centres about to come on board. We're looking about ED. Yes, no one's going to make a fortune out of A&E referrals to Pharmacy First, but every little one works. There's a new training manager within NHS 111 who's really keen to learn about how they can drive clinical advisors on the phone to be more forceful about offering pharmacy. So it's a real key focus around that same day access perspective for us. So it's those of you who are delivering great availability in numbers, thank you, keep it up. Again, as Gareth talked about, that local engagement piece is so important. Practices, in truth, that they will buy you as an individual pharmacist and practitioner, right, as much as they will buy the pharmacy or the service. So if you're strong as an individual, build that relationship. It does take time. Yeah, there's no magic button. I wish there was, but there's not. You invest in that relationship, meet with them when service. Talk about good things, not just. If you have a meeting with a practice manager or a reception manager, don't make it a moan fest, whatever you do, because no one wants to be in a moan fest today. So, keep regular constructive engagement, keep selling yourself, do try to, talk to them about appropriate referrals, obviously managing bounce backs as well. Try and make it work and make sure it's available. It's available 100% of the time. We know that's really important to our practice colleagues and embeds confidence. Don't be afraid to shy away from not supplying antibiotics if it's not clinically appropriate. Do have some feedback that concerns around antimicrobial stewardship. So, if patient's got a sore throat and their fever pain score is like 1, you know what, not appropriate for antimicrobials, don't supply them, or 3, and obviously wait to hit the gateway point, but 3 or 4, make that appropriate clinical decision whether antimicrobials are appropriate. But we are doing lots of work to try and drive those referrals, So hopefully that will bear perspective as the year progresses out. I think I've got a second slide here, Gareth, as well now. A lot of which I've touched about, but I talked about them buying you as an individual, and your pharmacist as an individual is as much about buying the service. So things that put practices off referring and sending patients, they've listed out, talked about a lot of them. Is that patchy availability? Is it available today? Is it not? Right, okay. No one wants to know. They want it available all the time. Poor documentation comes up quite regularly, so make sure that on the clinic, you're putting a clinical narrative in your post-event message on pharma outcomes. So quick summary about what you saw, what the patient presented, particularly as we move to a landscape where we've got GP Connect update records. Where those records are going straight back into the pharmacy record, the practice record. That's a really popular one as well. And perhaps I wonder whether, Gareth, it might be worth sharing some information about GP Connect to give a topic for discussion, perhaps for colleagues to meet your local practice just to talk about GP Connect. So I've just had that thought now, but maybe we'll have that. We'll try and get something out to you. But yeah, that summary there. Make sure it's consistently offered in a high quality clinical environment. Don't do it at the end of the counter. It's outside the service spec. It looks terrible. Right? If your consultation room is filthy and covered in dirt, please clean it. That comes up quite regularly as well. Yeah, I'm sure people on here, the code doesn't apply, but it applies to some people. So get that documentation right. But they will buy you as much as they buy the service. So if you're offering a high quality service as an individual clinician, they will buy into that. Thank you, Gareth.
Thanks, Paul. A quick look now at new medicine service changes. The NMS service fee has been simplified. It has been split into two similar £14 fees for the intervention element and for the follow-up element. Also, part completed services can now be claimed where you have performed the intervention but the patient was not contactable for the follow-up. The MYS claims platform needs to be updated, and at the moment you can only insert a single figure for the number of services that you have provided. Consider the example here where 20 interventions were made and 11 follow-ups. Thus, the MYS claim figure should simply be for 31 fees. You can expect separate boxes in the future, but for now there's only one, and that's how you calculate the number for the boxes. Note, off-site subcontracting of services to third-party providers has now been banned, so draw a line under that if it applies in your business. SSRI meds will be added to the list of drug classes allowable for NMS services, or it might be antidepressants in general. I need to check that. This will generate a considerable expansion of qualifying NMS volumes. And thankfully, mental health consultation skills training is supported within the PQS element of the Community Pharmacy Contractual Framework, which we will look at now. The incentivised PQS scheme is worth £2,875 per pharmacy. Think about it, this is comparable to the dispensing fees for around 2,000 items, which puts the PQS fees into a positive perspective. PQS activities are fewer than usual since 2 months of the contracting year has already slipped by. Excuse me. And some of the requirements are refreshers of previous PQS items, which will ease compliance. I would just pick out the two training-orientated activities. The first helpfully supports delivery of the new NMS antidepressants category, whilst the CPPE EHC training is usefully aligned with the new NHS EHC service. The aspiration payment deadline has now passed. The £2,000 arriving in July will certainly support contractor cash flows in these tight times. I would point out also that the available PQS fees also equates to around 12 days of locum time. Whilst I suspect the list of PQS items will only take you 3 or 4 days. Just think what your equivalent day rate might be if you completed your PQS list of activities sooner rather than later. I understand Paul might mention PQS from the ICB perspective, so he will pick that up in a moment. Finally, from me, I would share this summary timeline. It's a visual summarizing the key dates for your pharmacy diaries. So looking at June, if you haven't done it, you will need to register for the pharmacy contraception service and the hypertension case finding service as necessary. In July, you will be spending your £2,000 PQS aspiration payment. Then in October, you must be in a position to provide at least one ABPM service in the bundle of services that you will be claiming for that month. Otherwise, any pharmacy first incentive payment that may be due to you, you may have done 30 plus services. Any pharmacy first incentive payment that would be due to you because you've hit the 31 threshold will be disallowed. You will not get it if you haven't submitted an ABPM service, at least one of them, in the bundle of services that you're claiming for in October. Also, please note in October, the NHS EHC service will commence. So you're going to have a busy time in the lead up to October. And of course, in October, the NMS service will be, excuse me, apologies. So the NMS service will be including antidepressant interventions from then on as well. Then from next March 2026, a minimum number of contraception services will also need to be provided, plus that recurring one ABPM service requirement. This then completes service delivery bundling of all three PCARP services, with the incentive payment being dependent on activity levels for all three services. So that's important to get our heads around. That's quite enough from me now, so I'll hand you back over to Paul. Paul.
Thank you very much, Gareth. So I've mentioned this, throughout the opportunities I've had to speak, and thanks for this. I can't say enough that local engagement between yourself and your key in effect customer, which is your practice, it is so important, and it can be hard, and I do appreciate that. And if you are struggling, do drop me a line, and I'll try and get an idea of the right person to perhaps come and speak to. The other thing I want to mention about is that hyper local marketing around social media on your really local areas, your spotted Systons and your what's happening in Market Harbour type. Make sure that you've got a presence there. This is where population, regardless of age and background, really are starting to identify where local services are that can support them. Do you understand who the key influence are in the practice? It might not be who you think it is. It might not be the senior partner. It might well be that the reception supervisor is the person that can actually open doors for you. So just remember that. I talked about there should be no magic button, but just keep that regular engagement. Even if you feel that you're not getting there straight away, the ongoing engagement is really important, and make sure you can deliver what you offer. If you're saying that you can offer pharmacy first all the time, make sure you can offer pharmacy first all the time. That is really important as well. But hopefully we'll have a really successful year this year as pharmacy in LR. We had a great year last year, though I appreciate it did feel tough for lots of people. Hopefully we can have a great year here as well. Thank you, Gareth.
And I would just hand over to Rashri, if you're able to pick up just now, Rashri. There's your slide.
Thank you, Gareth. So I'm going to focus on the parts of the CPCF changes that Gareth hasn't touched on, mainly around the regulatory changes. So, and also I've had quite a few queries from contractors regarding these. So in no particular order, but I know I've had a number of queries, particularly around clinical audit and health campaigns, and also regulatory changes in hours as well, which I'll touch on in my next slide. But in terms of clinical audits, just to remind you now that there's no requirement to complete a nationally chosen audit. So that's good news in terms of not being so labour intensive on contractors as well. The other element is just to remind you around health campaigns for 25-26. So for 25-26, pharmacies will only have to take part in a maximum of 2 national health campaigns and 2 campaigns which are now selected by the ICB. So those are to be determined, and as soon as we've got information about those, we will certainly cascade that to all contractors in LLR. 2 more things around the regulatory changes. One which seems quite insignificant, but actually it is if you're about to put in an order for more practice leaflets. Now, as part of the CPCF changes, the requirement to produce a practice leaflet is no longer mandatory, so that's now been removed as well. And the final thing is just around the signing prescription declaration. So the requirement for patients that pay for an NHS prescription charge to complete and sign a declaration on the back of the prescription has also been removed. Next slide, please, Gareth. Okay, so this is quite a busy slide, and apologies for that, but you will get a copy of the slides following a recording as well of today's event, so you'll be able to see the timeline on the left a little bit more clearly. I'm not going to talk about specifically the entire timeline, but just a few things. You can see from the middle section of that timeline that June is a really busy period, and no doubt it's going to be a busy period for contractors because that's when the bundling that Gareth alluded to takes force. So in preparation, just thinking about what you can do, and something that we've been discussing at the LPC team is around what can you do to get yourselves and your team prepared for that. And a simple thing is around calibration of your devices for your ABPM machine, your blood pressure. So just making sure that you've got that completed in advance before the June deadline hits, or before it becomes mandatory in terms of that bundling up. And the reason I mention this is because we are hearing murmurs of contractors having to wait several weeks once they've actually sent their machine off for calibration, and it taking quite a number of weeks for them to return that. So if you can get that in early, we strongly urge you and recommend that you do that. The second bit is around amendments for the regulations, particularly around changing the days and times of core opening times. And I've spoken to a number of contractors about this who are really waiting for more further information about CPE, from CPE about this. But really any changes, and we don't know what precisely the changes are or how it will work. But we do know that the regulatory amendments are there to enable pharmacy owners to change their opening days, opening hours to days and times that better serve their patients, and therefore likely users of the pharmacy in some cases close at quiet times or out of hours. So the key points within this aspect of the changes for CPCF are that changing core opening hours will remain an application process. And again, the ICB must approve any changes that are proposed by yourselves, contractors, as well. The total number of core opening hours must remain the same, so that's really no change, but another provision of applications to reduce the number of core opening hours, and the new core opening hours must better meet the needs of patients and likely users of pharmacy. So really thinking about how you're going to evidence that and how you're going to demonstrate that is important. So going on to the evidence of the economic viability for the contractor of their current opening hours may be considered by the ICB going forward as well. So we are waiting for the changes in regulations, and they obviously have to be made and amended first. And only then will these changes be effective and be applicable. So as soon as we've got notification again from Community Pharmacy England, we will notify you, because I know again some contractors are eagerly anticipating and waiting for these changes to be made from a regulation perspective. But like I said, as soon as we've got light of when that is and any further information, we will share that. Thank you. Thanks, Gareth. Back to you.
Well, Thank you, Rashri. That completes the slide deck that we've got ready, and now we're going to pass over now to Suki, if Suki is able to jump on there. So I think I need to just stop sharing, and then I think that allows you to jump in there.
Yep, so hopefully you can see my slides now. If somebody could just, I don't know, do an emoji. Yes, great, thank you. So thank you for the opportunity just to talk about this. I was going to mention about the quality framework, but that's been superseded because on yesterday we announced that for 2025, our community pharmacy technician apprenticeship funding offer had gone live. So just going to run through a few bits of information. So what we're offering is £15,053 per year. So it'd be 2 years in total to train a PT. So that's just over 30,000 for any successful contractors who would be training up a PT. So as a contractor, if you were successful, you need to make sure that you pick a program that meets the GPHC initial education and training standards for pharmacy technicians. And more importantly, it meets the NHS England quality framework. So the quality framework, the link on the slide, and I'll share this afterwards, will take you through to the web page there. And the quality framework is a list of 6 domains that focus on specific areas. And underneath that are a list of descriptors. So I'd certainly say if you're not familiar with the quality framework, one of the things that you could do is actually just look at the descriptors and see what you have in your workplace that kind of matches that. So, for example, one of the descriptors was talking about how there's some kind of error monitoring and some process for dealing with that. And it might be that actually as an evidence point of view, you already have error logs, you have near miss recording, you generally look at your errors, feed that back to the rest of the staff so the same mistake's not going to happen again. You might do practical things like change the layout of where certain sound alike and look alike drugs that might potentially cause harm are separated on your shelving system. So I would certainly say have a look at that quality framework and read the descriptors, because it's those little bits of evidence that actually you could add into your application that shows that you've got a good quality training site and you've got good experiential learning opportunities for the trainee. So as last year, the application is through an expression of interest form. In the email that was sent to all the NHS email addresses, there was a link to the online form there. It's also here in the slide deck as well. We are using JISC as a platform for that as well. And I think there is an opportunity at the end for you to download your application if you need to, just so you could keep a copy there as well. One thing that has changed from last year is the third point on this slide, that applications will be capped at 2 posts per contractor per NHS region. So last year we left it as a very open thing, so anybody could apply for as many posts as they want, and I think we'd capped that at 22, and that was to tie in with our procurement rules that if it went over a certain threshold, then we weren't able to run this as an expression of interest process, and it would have had to be in a formal tender. I didn't see it so much in the Midlands region, but in some of the other areas, what happened was actually where we were hoping that a lot of small independent contractors, maybe somebody that owns only just a couple of branches, was successful in posts. In some areas, the proportion of places that went to a large multiple was greater. I think in the Midlands, as I said, our percentage was quite low. I think it was only about 10 to 14% that actually went to what I'd class as one of the big 5. The rest of the places went to small or medium contractors there as well. There is a guidance document as well. So I very strongly recommend that you actually read that guidance document, especially around the information that's about the questions and what kind of information that we're looking for. So that helps you tailor your answer there as well. And there's full information there on the website as well. So to be considered, we are using a first past the post system, but we have got a minimum threshold. So all the expressions of interest must score above 40%. But it will go working down. Generally, last year, a lot of our applications scored around the 62% mark to be successful, 62% and higher. That was a little bit lower in the Midlands compared to, for example, London region, where a lot of their applications scored about 68 and above there as well. And a lot of those points will come from actually linking your programme back to the quality framework. So I can't stress that enough about making sure that you're aware of that document and what's in there as well. So we have got 75 posts in the Midlands region, But unfortunately, in order for us to get this program out at this time, we're not able to sort of ring fence certain places per ICS area. It is going to be depending on the high score there as well. So with that in mind, it might be that we have lots of applications that are above the 40% and in those high 60s, but depending on the number of posts they're coming down, you might still be unsuccessful there as well. So the 7 questions that are weighted to identify the strength of your application form there as well. So some of those are linked to how the training that you're providing. So this isn't what your education provider will do, because they will very often provide you with a 24-month timetable that meets the curriculum and the that they're delivering. But what we're interested in is actually what do you do in the workplace to ensure that your PTPT has those necessary skills, knowledge and behavior there as well. So sometimes it could be if your education provider is saying, actually in the first 3 months we're looking at error monitoring, so people are aware of that. What do you do in the workplace? And it could be things like you're introducing them to your error monitoring, they're having a read of your previous errors so they're aware of things that happened before, so it triggers if they're dispensing that item to do that stop, check, reflect before they go ahead there as well. So the things there as well. And again, the quality questions are making sure that actually you've got the right infrastructure in place. So do you have adequate supervision? People are got the right knowledge and skills to actually like pass that on to the PTP there as well. So we are running some webinars. The first one's tomorrow, over the next couple of weeks. So hopefully there's a time slot that suits people. I don't know how LLR run your sessions. If the closing date is the 15th of June, if there's an opportunity, if you wanted to have like a local meeting for when I run the presentation, then I'm more than happy to offer that. I'm just aware that it might be from a timescale of trying to organise that, it might be quite short notice. So the application process opened yesterday. It's open until the 15th of June, and all the trainees must start between September and October. So we were sort of notifying the successful candidates towards the end of July. And there is a quick turnaround to get these people on programme, and that's just because of the wider financial pressures that we're experiencing within NHS England and the NHS as a whole. What we don't want is to show that actually the funding that we've been allocated for this programme, it doesn't get used in a timely manner, and it shows that we've got an underspend, because then the risk is that that might actually then go towards other programmes where they have subscribed on there as well. So that's just another thing to be mindful there. So it might be somebody that you've already got in mind that might be looking to upskill, but if it's going to be new recruitment, then you really do need to sort of be quite quick with that process there as well. Happy to take any questions, and I'll send these slides on to you, Rashni, so just in case anybody else wants to see them.
That's brilliant, Sophie. Thank you. Can I just ask one thing, just to clarify, if that's all right? And apologies if I missed this, because I was looking at the chat while you were talking as well. In terms of the 2 posts per region, we've used Midlands and LLI interchangeably as a region. So is it 2 posts in Midlands or 2 posts in LLR that are available?
We 2 posts in the Midlands, and I think that's because sometimes we had a multiples last year that might have said, oh, actually I want a couple in LLR, I want a couple in the BSOL area, and some of that. And that actually, when you add all those up, if they use the same wording in their applications and it was a good application, that took up quite a large percentage of our 75 places. So this time round, because we want to spread it more, so we have more contractors that's successful, that's why we've capped it so it's across the region.
So yeah, across Midlands then. And then just in a couple more follow-up questions, if that's okay. And I'll obviously let contractors come in if they've got any questions specifically about the training and the funding, sorry. It's just last time when contractors have completed their EOI, I don't think they received any feedback about their application. So if they were to submit it again, I just think, how would they know what a quality submission is and where they potentially, what areas they lacked in order to ensure this time round that they are successful? I think that feedback is really important.
So last year we kind of operated a 3-step feedback process. So the first was very much, I'm sorry, you've been unsuccessful. There was a follow-up if people asked for that, where it was a bit more of, it was a generic message, but actually it was the key themes that had come out across all the applications and things that people had fallen down. And if people had asked for further feedback, then they were able to sort of request that. And I personally ran those contractors. So certainly when I look at the numbers, I think we had about 20 people that wanted the second step feedback, and we sent them that generic email that was kind of broad strokes. And then from that, there were about 10 people that did ask for more feedback. So those people I did bring back individually and give them feedback on their applications.
Okay, but
I think the key things were where I found a lot of the applications were very same, and there was nothing to distinguish between one and the other, was the questions around the GPHC standards and how your training met those standards. Because what I noticed was a lot of people just copied and pasted what their education provider was doing, and that's not what we're looking for, because we already know the education providers being accredited to deliver that program to meet those standards. It's what you're doing. So those people that had actually not copied and pasted what the education provider did and actually thought about what do I do in my workplace, they scored higher. And the questions around the quality, about how you're supporting your trainee, which links back to the quality framework, that was another key differentiator between people that scored highly and those that didn't. So like I said, I would suggest going back to quality framework. What I can do is actually send through a slide deck I had prepared around the quality framework, where I looked at some of the domains and actually picked out one descriptor and tried to give examples of things that you could think about in community pharmacy. So I can share that with you, if you could share that across your network, because then that might provide a little bit more a starting place for people to think about. Actually, I don't know how to interpret it. If I give you an example, then that might trigger some other thoughts and go, well, yeah, but we do this and we do this. Because I think those are the bits you need to put in your application.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's brilliant. There's two questions. One from Nadia. She's asked, how fast will we hear back?
So unfortunately, I have some annual leave in July. So we're hoping once the closing date passes, that within the Midlands region, we would let everybody know the week commencing the 21st of July.
And Rajni has asked, can you please flag the contact slide, i.e. the last slide, please? So Rajni, you will get the slide deck once Suki sends it over. So you'll probably get that tomorrow.
I'll send that over this evening to you, and the other presentation slide that I've got. So in the other presentation that's around the quality framework, I'll send it as a PDF document so you can see the notes, because that's where a lot of the supplementary information is as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks, Suki. Not sure if there's any other questions for Suki, or actually if there are any questions from contractors in terms of, or whoever, in terms of pharmacists that joined, about what you've heard today about the CPCF changes and what Gareth presented for the bulk of tonight's webinar. There was a question from Rahul Gareth, which was around the bundling of services, and does this mean we have to do at least one of each, or do we have to be registered and be able to provide all three services?
Let me just use this this timeline slide. Can everyone see the timeline slide?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, so I tried to explain it as CPE have explained it, but I think sometimes it's easier to understand the implication when things go wrong. So let's look at it from the other end. So imagine here we're looking at June 2025. In June, the negotiations have required contractors to register as providers of blood pressure check services and the pharmacy contraception service. That's in June. So all contractors should be registered in June. Imagine in June you've done 31 or 32 qualifying pharmacy firsts, and you're anticipating getting a £1,000 payment. If you have not registered for the hypertension case finding service, and if you have not registered for the pharmacy contraception service, when that claim is being processed, your June claim for 31 pharmacy first, you will not be paid your bonus payment of £1,000, because in June and July and August and September, all of those months, your banded Pharmacy First incentive is dependent on you having been registered for these other two services. So if you don't get it registered in June, you're going to miss the that payment. If you get around to it in July, you might pick up a bonus payment in July if you've hit another 31 plus, but you will have lost the bonus that you forfeited in June. Moving on, so the bundling there, it only requires Pharmacy First services, up until now, plus that's in terms of actual service provision. June requires registration, but no actual service provision of pharmacy contraception services, or even the hypertension case finding services. So June, July, August, September, you will be claiming for Pharmacy First services with those other two being registered. Then you hit October. In October, if you hit 31 Pharmacy First qualifying services and you claim your payment, in October, you must also claim for an ABPM service, and you must still be registered as a provider of the pharmacy contraception service. So hopefully that's clear. So in October, you must be registered as a pharmacy contraception service provider. You don't need to provide any of the pharmacy contraception services per se, but you need to be registered, because in October, if you're not, you're going to forfeit your fee. You'll still forfeit the fee if you haven't done one ABPM to go along with your 31 or your 20 or 21 Pharmacy First. And then that's how it continues from October through to February. And in March next year, we will know whatever the magic number is for pharmacy contraception services. Let's say it's 3 or 4. In March 2026, to claim your £1,000 fee entitlement if you've done 31 qualifying Pharmacy First services, you must also be submitting one ABPM unit of service in March 2026, and whatever the specified number of pharmacy contraception services might be. So in March 2026, the bundling requires a submission of actual services for all three services, whereas before then it's registration, a mix of registration and service provision. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but I know it's an important point, and if anyone has any more follow-up questions. Paul, have I represented that as you understand it?
Paul's actually had to disappear because he's got to take his dad somewhere, so he's no longer with us, excuse me. But I think it is, to be fair, Gareth, in terms of what we currently know based on the CPCF timelines. We can't give any further information if it's not available, but we know it's imminent, it's coming, and the devil's in the detail, isn't it, once we're aware of what that looks like.
Certainly that's the direction of travel, Rashri, and we all have been sort of forewarned, and we need to work towards this if this all comes to pass. We have been given caveats if the IT doesn't all work out, so things will slip potentially, but then they might not slip. So that's what we've got to be thinking about and preparing for.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gareth. Are there any other questions from anyone that's on the call whilst we've got myself and Gareth here just about the CPCF changes? Anything specific you'd like to know? If you're brave enough, please put your hand up, or you can add it to the chat. No? Okay. Well, I'm going to stop recording then, if that's okay. And do feel free to ask